Hello and welcome to today's episode of Platinum Talks Wealth. Emmy-nominated journalist Jennifer Rogers Markwell changed gears in her television career when she realized the need to help women make sense of investing. She regularly hosts educational workshops to empower women and others to take charge of their financial future. Now, join your host, Platinum Wealth Management President Jennifer Rogers Markwell, as she leads us into the world of money memories, money infidelities, and how these can mold our relationship with our personal finances as adults. Let's dive into today's episode.
It's Jennifer Rogers Markwell, and you're joining us on the Platinum Talks Wealth podcast. Today, we're joined by Melisa Keenan.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, tell us all about you and then why you do what you do.
Okay, let's see. I'm 5'11". That's a funny thing that no one would know by hearing my voice. So that provides a unique experience in life. I've always been very tall, taller than all my peers. I've been this size since I was 12. And I think probably in a way it's formed parts of my personality, like always trying to make myself smaller a little bit and then really not succeeding at that because I love the stage. So grew up doing pageants, doing cheer, doing leadership, and came into, my marriage. We have 4 children, and I still am always finding ways to manage to put myself in the spotlight. So I ran an intimacy coaching business, running that all online, a lot of free content and things on YouTube and stuff for the last about 6 years. And then about a year ago, I transitioned into publishing.
That's a lot going on.
That's a lot going on.
Yeah. How did the publishing thing happen? So I know you, I've known you for a while, and thank you for making time to come on the podcast because we've been talking about this for some time. But how did the publishing thing happen? How did the path go that way?
Well, I always knew that I wanted to write my story. From very young, so around age 12, my whole family life completely fell to pieces. My dad died, my parents divorced, my parents were abusive of each other, there was drug use, there was violence. My mom lost custody of me just before my dad died. Then I moved in with my aunt and uncle and lived with guardians, and really didn't have a lot of support to process the total devastation at age 12 that I had endured. But I found, I was always tricking the therapist, whatever. But I found that writing in my English classes, and, I ended up taking some speech and debate classes and things in junior high. And that was the one area where I really started to feel like I could heal. I would write about a girl named Francesca, and she was the one who had been through all the things that I actually had been through. And then I would share it in front of the classroom, shaking, paralyzed, and I would feel sort of better afterwards. Mm-hmm. So because of that, it instilled this love of writing. I always knew I wanted to write. So in 2021, I hired a writing coach. I did all this different stuff. And then I started to get into the weeds with what it would take to publish the book once I wrote it. And it was so intense. I actually fired the writing coach. I stopped writing and was like, I'm not going to spend, all this time pouring into a book until I can see that there's a clear path to get the book into the world. It just seemed so hard. And so I put a pause on that, but I kept it on my vision board. And then this opportunity came around. I didn't know about multi-author books. And so I was in my first multi-author book in 2021. And since then, I've been published in 6 total multi-author books. I've hit USA Today bestseller. I've hit Amazon bestseller, international bestseller. Multi-author books have been such a huge tool for me. I couldn't believe it because I was like, oh my gosh, I can write a chapter and I can just pour my story, and then you're going to work all this magic for me. And that's all I have to do. Because previously I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to submit manuscripts for years before someone ever lets me know if I can get my book into the world. And So I loved that model. And slowly over time, never did I think, well, I should be a publisher, but I got close to the publisher that I was working with. And I started to realize like it's not as complex as people make it seem. And so through a bunch of serendipitous events, I was kind of invited to take over a publishing company, and really pretty much thought, who, me? When that invitation came. But also felt kind of that inner nudge, like it felt exciting. It felt like the right next step. So I followed that, and it was neat because it actually felt like a natural iteration of the intimacy work I had already been doing. So I had worked, like I said, for about 5 years solely as an intimacy coach, helping women and couples, a lot of times entrepreneurs, to get outside of themselves, to bare their soul to each other. Intimacy, I always have defined as into me see. And so really sharing your story in these kinds of ways in your book is it can be void of intimacy, and I find those books less interesting, but it usually is an act of intimacy. So it's so much fun. That's how I landed here.
Yeah, and it's really tying in, I think, everything for you in essence, right? Like really, there's an overlap there for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I've had the pleasure to write as a multi-author and also the pleasure of doing it for another one, which we're talking about manifesting, which is super cool because for me, I'm going to be elaborating more on a story that literally I created a vision board. That's something I do every year. And I put my husband on the vision board. And it's a wild deal because I wasn't looking, right? I'm like, no, I'm good. Like taking care of my grandma, like business, everything, right? I was fine. I was happy, good. And then lo and behold, I had, which is a funny story. Like, do you remember the polo horse and the polo guy, like from like the 80s? Like
No,
Ralph Lauren had this ad with this like
Ralph Lauren.
handsome
Yes.
guy, like on a horse or whatever. So I had that, but I cut the guy's face out and I put like a star over the top of it because I didn't want it to be defined as any person per se, because who knows what that looks like. And then for me, it was one of those things that I got set up with my husband on a blind date. Neither one of us wanted to go. Funny story about it, which I'll go more into in the book. But we went and it was wild. Like people say when you know, you know. And I always thought that was so cliche. And literally we met. My number one thing was I want someone to be funny. Be a good human being, pay your bills, like be a good person, but like be funny. Like I don't care what you look like or what you do. Like be a funny human being. Like funny is important to me. And so literally we met and he was hilarious. And we were engaged 2 months after that and married 4 months after that.
Oh, I love that so much. It's so funny, right? It is cliche until you experience the when you know, you know.
No, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I totally know. Like he's like, I want you to know how, and I'll put this in the book too, like how important this is and how I want to put our love first, front and center of everything that we do. So we've renewed our wedding vows, 26 times in 10 years. So we're always renewing our wedding vows. And every time we do it, it's such a deep emotional thing. Like I cry every time because I'm like, holy camoly, this is a big deal. Like it's a big deal to like give yourself to someone and share that and have that conversation and really recommit again. It's wild.
The first time you ever told me that you guys have renewed your wedding vows that many times, I was stunned because as an intimacy coach, right? Like I think I hold myself to a pretty high standard, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's beautiful." We've done it once in 15 years. I'm like, I'm inspired.
Not to divert too much. What's a money memory that you had as a child or younger person that helped mold your relationship to money as an adult?
Yeah, well, and I think it does weave in. I've already shared a bit of like childhood kind of pieces in there. Obviously, there was tremendous trauma in my childhood, but what I don't typically talk about is that there was tremendous poverty. I can remember right after my parents divorced, my dad was going through uh, basically he had been injured on the job and it forced him to go file for disability income. And he went from, he had run his own business. It was called Click Refrigeration. And we lived in Hawthorne, Nevada. And he had tiny place in Nevada. One stoplight, 1 mile square town. And he ran a really successful business. That meant that he had to travel like away from our little rural town all the time. And it was his pride and joy, like it was his whole I think his whole identity was like, I run Click Refrigeration, this is who I am. He did not have any business skills, and the work was so demanding. He had flirted with drugs most of his life, so he definitely had a drug addiction. What kind? I don't know, but one that lets you stay up for many hours and many days at a time. So he would go and he would work like mad for days and days at a time. And honestly, I never saw him crash. It's not like he would come home and sleep forever. I have no idea how he functioned that way. But so loving with me when he was home. There's this sweet song that I'm actually named after, Sweet Melissa by the Allman Brothers. So my dad, when he was in his teens, lived with the Allman Brothers for a little while. I think kind of that influenced why he decided to name his only child Melissa. And that song, I didn't realize this until many, many years after his death, and like listening to the nuance. But that song was such a representation of the way I experienced him. And I think the way he experienced me, although it's written about his lover, Melissa, it's like about this gypsy who cannot just stay put and who is constantly like going with the wind, but his heart and his home is always really, truly with Melissa. If he could get himself to settle down, that was my dad. So, to tie that back to, which was very sweet and also very heartbreaking, right? Like, to tie that back to money, that's what I saw, workaholism, and, using work for identity, using work for like self-worth and fulfillment, and overworking like crazy, putting everything else secondary to that. And I will say that has definitely impacted me. Like, you don't necessarily realize it until you realize you're doing it. So, yep.
It's easy to be guilty of that, right? Especially if you love what you do.
Yeah. Although I don't think I've never been tempted to go to like crack or something. I don't actually know.
No,
I'm so like drug naive, but whatever drugs he was doing, I haven't gone that far. But honestly, I have done things just as destructive, like not eating for many meals in a row, things like that, because I get so poured into what it is that I'm doing. And even the adrenaline hit of like success, of whether it's a sale or recognizing that I've helped someone, or recognizing that like, what I wrote was a huge hit, like likes and things like that. Like it all gives you hits. It's very similar to a drug addiction. So those are the kinds of things that I've had to go, okay. And call on my angel dad now, who has been in heaven for some time now, to be like, help me, because I did never see him, forced onto disability. I never saw him truly heal these wounds. And, basically forced onto disability. And I think because his body finally slowed down, all the years of unprocessed emotion, not really facing his life, and the deterioration and like havoc that he wreaked on his body caught up with him. Diagnosed with terminal cancer, worst stage, and died 3 months after his diagnosis. So so my poor daddy. So I'm very much like, okay, how I have to do that different. It's very important to me to be super aware.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing and being open to share.
Yeah.
So transitioning kind of to, financial infidelities. Now that can be definably different for different people. That could be not being impeccable with yourself when it comes to money. That could be a business partner that maybe wasn't forthright about money situations. I mean, we can go in a lot of different directions on that. What's a financial infidelity that you've either experienced or that you've witnessed that you think others could learn from?
I really love that you asked this question and that you invite people to share so vulnerably about money on this show, because we don't have enough safe spaces to hear these types of stories and share these types of stories. When finance start to get shaky between my husband and I always remind him that a friend of a friend told my friend, he was a billionaire, and he told her, I'm never going to take your business seriously and truly consider you successful until you have filed for bankruptcy 5 times. And I thought that was so fascinating. Now, I mean, that's not a great standard to live by, but it was like, okay, this is really validating. So if I try and fail multiple times, that's like par for the course. So I just think it's so important that these stories get to be shared.
You are listening to the Platinum Talks Wealth Podcast.
Hey, it's Jennifer. I wanted to take a quick break to remind you that you are worthy to have a seat at the table when it comes to money and your finances. We, both me and my team at Platinum Wealth Management, want to meet you where you are, whether you're starting out, starting over, or have been investing for years. Reach out to us at platinumwealth.net or call us at 775-717-0001. We'd be honored to help.
And now, back to the podcast.
I guess the saying that says I probably have experienced a lot of different financial infidelities, and I'm trying to think which one I would like to share most. The thing that's been pressing on my heart a lot lately is in the coaching industry. I have invested many times in coaches who had huge promises and completely underdelivered, or basically didn't deliver at all on the promises. Probably representing at least $100,000 worth of investments in the course of the last 6 years. And that sucks. Like, and it honestly it's way more common than it should be. And it's more prevalent, I would say, in the coaching industry than in other industries, because the coaching industry is not regulated. I love that it's not regulated. That means I got to coach on intimacy without having a degree in therapy, and I got to do it my way, and I got to share my stories and be personal with people because I wasn't regulated by all these laws about how I could and couldn't help people. I love that it's not regulated, and then there's drawbacks for it to not be regulated. I didn't have any kind of training, right? Like when I started my business, I had a super passionate heart to help people. I had personally experienced tremendous transformation in my marriage and in myself, and I knew I could help people to do the same. I went to coaching certifications. That was fantastic. But where I was lacking was business prowess. Like, I didn't know anything about running a business, but I was like, I can do it. I'll put my mind to it and I can do it. And it's business coaches that I have hired, and business strategies that I have hired that I didn't even know how to do due diligence. It's not like, where am I going to get that information besides through friggin' trial and error? And it's really, there's been a lot of things that I've been looking at, like what would prevent someone from entering into and being so vulnerable to these types of preying business owners. And there's a lot. It's actually really deeply rooted in our system, I think. It's things like coaches who set themselves up on pedestals. So somehow you get this mentality like, well, if I'm rubbing shoulders with them every day, then maybe all their magical sparkles that they're doing to their business is going to rub off on mine. It's also how we're taught to talk about our work in the coaching industry. So business coaches, every business coach will tell you, my way is the only way. Like, and that is so not in the service of the client, because you're running a different business, you're a different human being, and you came into running a business, especially online, because you wanted that unlimited creativity. But then it overwhelmed you because you haven't been trained. Our whole school system doesn't train us to actually utilize our creativity. So you're just literally come out into the business world and you're thinking, who can tell me what to do? I'm really good at following plans. I'm really good at following systems. I can be the best student. Who can tell me what to do? And then you hire this show off know-it-all who actually doesn't, really, really good about talking about what they do, not so good at delivering what they actually say that they're going to deliver. And, yeah, I think we have to learn how to do more of that due diligence And probably there's the obvious side of like, check the BBB, check the Better Business Bureau, like check for Google reviews and stuff like that I didn't do. But then there's also the like more feminine energy or internal side of like, don't bypass your intuition. If you're feeling total panic about a choice, wait. There is never a rush. Like there's never a like, they will always extend the, get in at this price if you sign up in the next 24 hours or whatever. Like if it's really meant to be, wait until your nervous system says yes. Listen to that. Wait and watch, like, what are the red flags? What are they not telling me? What are the risks here that they're not like forthcoming about? And then above all, are they teaching you how to excavate your own inner wisdom, or are they teaching you a system that they did where, how many of their clients, what percentage of their clients are even actually having success with that system? It's sad, because since it's happened to me so much, I've now talked to, probably at least 100 people who have been through similar experiences.
Yeah, I've heard that before. And I think you bring up a really good point, because there's, again, unless you're going to business school specifically, if you're just, going to, traditional college or traditional high school, like there's no magical class that teaches you like how to work in the business and work on the business, because those are two separate things.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Bachelor degree in biology over here. And that obviously didn't give me a drop of help with what was required as a business owner. And yet my heart still calls. I could just close up shop and go get a job. And my heart says, no, that's not the path for me. Being a business owner, and I think we'll see people more and more getting even more and more creative as our world shifts and changes, and so many of the systems and structures that exist, I think, are crumbling. I think we'll see people getting more and more creative about how they serve in the world, and that's so important, because it allows us to actually ask what's best for me first. So kind of back to what I was saying about my dad, I realized for me, being a business owner allows me to also homeschool my children. And it allows me to also like pour time into stuff that I love, like my garden and just enjoying my life, to be more present in my relationships, because I have the space to do that. I define my schedule, but it takes training to decondition all the like workaholism that's actually built into our society from the beginning, to run our lives in a way that feels expansive and beautiful and good to us.
Well, as we start to wrap the conversation, what are some tips and or tricks that you use to utilize money differently in your own household?
Well, one of my favorite things came from a mentor who taught me, what does she call it? Money, love, date. Money, love, date. It's basically the concept of recognizing the values in the exchanges that I have with money. So I picture it in my mind energetically, like bringing the money out of my root chakra, out of this place of like survival and what's best for me and how can I get the best bang for my buck and all that kind of stuff, up into my heart, to this place of like, what would feel amazing to give and to receive the things that I'm paying for. And then I take it all the way down to like my Netflix bill, like, which took time. I actually have a sheet that I'll go back to maybe every once a quarter, twice a year, something like that, to like really go, do I feel aligned with the things I'm paying for? My Netflix bill is great because it means snuggle time with my family. So like, that's how I get that bill up into my heart. So that's a really fun one for me, is just kind of like looking at, what are we? And then there's times when I'm like, this isn't in my heart. I don't like this thing. Nails, consistently doing my nails was one of those. I realized like, this takes a lot of time. I don't enjoy it. And it's very expensive. And I actually think I'm doing this because I think I'm supposed to do this. I'm not going to do it anymore. So I just don't.
No, that's true, because I think it's how you like somebody had said too, and I'm not quoting that person because I don't remember who said it, but like, how lucky are we to be able to have a stream of income, to be able to pay bills and put that back out in the universe?
So true.
You know, I mean, that's just a different perspective of like looking at money and bills. And when you're paying utilities, like you probably don't want to throw a party, but right? Like you're able to do it and you have the resources to be able to do it to make that difference.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
good. That was a good one. Well, thank you so much for making time today. I so appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I've just so appreciated what you do in the world, what you stand for in the world.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. And hopefully those of you watching or listening will join us on the next Platinum Talks Wealth podcast.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, Platinum Talks Wealth, please subscribe and share. For more information about Jennifer Rogers Markwell or Platinum Wealth Management, please visit www.platinumwealth.net. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member of FINRA and SIPC. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. The guest speakers and their companies are not affiliated with or endorsed by LPL Financial or Platinum Wealth Management.